Bill Flaherty again with Football Coaches Forum. What we're going to do in this video is I wanted to give you a visual of some of the things I talked about in the offensive line video that I put out last time. And we're going to go through the process of how do you find the proper stance for your individual player. Everybody's height and body type are different, so you can't expect them all to look the same in their stance, but the principles will apply. You're trying to get the proper stance for them so when they take their first step, they have a good solid base as they're making contact with the opponent. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to demonstrate on the fence behind me the starting point to find out the proper spacing for their feet and their stance. For each individual player, you'll be able to do this and get them all in the proper spot. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make like I'm in a position where I'm going to push this fence over, and I have a good wide base as if I were pushing. And all I'm going to do is take my right foot where I've taken my 45-degree step and bring it back 6 inches. Because that's all you're trying to do is take a 6-inch step. And then at that point, this is the proper width for my stance when I come up to the line. So you want to do that with each of your players and find out the proper width that they should be when they come up and they come to the line of scrimmage. So in that case, the width of my stance is going to be like this, so that when I take my 45-degree 6-inch step, I've got a good solid base that I'm working from as I'm making contact with the opponent. So that's our good starting point. What we'll do now is we'll pause for a second, and then we'll get in an area where I'll show you the spacing and stances and everything else for this. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the concept that I use with my offensive linemen. If you remember in the previous videos, I do not have a right and left offensive line. I have a strong and quick line. So the players will either be to the right of the center or to the left of the center on a given play. I believe in flipping my offensive line to maximize the strengths of my best players and minimize the weak of my worst players. But because of that, I don't take the conventional staggered stance that most offensive linemen do, where if they're on the right side, their right foot is staggered backwards. If they're on the left side, it's staggered backwards on that side. So what I'm going to show you now is when we come up to the line of scrimmage, we just went through how to find the proper width to our stance, is both of my feet are going to be square to the line of scrimmage. I don't have my right foot back if I'm on the right side, or my left foot back on the left side, because that's too difficult for people to do from one play to another. The other thing it does is that we can have the same balanced step and width no matter whether we're going to our right or our left. If I had my right foot staggered and 6 inches back, when I take a 6-inch step with my left foot, I'd have too wide of a stance. So by doing this, no matter what direction I'm going, I'm always going to have a good base when I'm making contact with the defender. What we do when we come up to the line, and this is my preference, and full disclosure, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, but this is not why I do this. It comes from analyzing reasons for using this technique. When we come to the line of scrimmage, we come with our hands on our knees and our head is up so that we can see where the defenders are. What that does is that gives us the ability to go on down, on sweeps, quick pitches, and in our passing game, so that it gives our offensive linemen an advantage over the defender as far as they may not be ready yet. And the other thing it does is it forces them to show their defense early. So they're not jumping all around or moving all around in front of us trying to confuse our blocking scheme. They've got to be where they're supposed to be, because once we do this a couple of times, they won't know whether we're going on down or not, so they're going to have to be ready, which helps us understand where they're going to be. So what we do though is we have our stance and we're here, and now on down, if we're not going on down, or even if we are, if we're going on down, that means I've got the step and I've got the leverage on my defender immediately if he's not ready and he's kind of half asleep. So again, that'll be a little different than what they see every week. But we have our steps, so if we're running sweeps, we want to reach block that guy. Or if we're going to pull out of here, it's easier for us to get out of this stance than if we're already down. But if we're going down, we're going to come from here, we're going to come straight up, and then we're going to go out to where our hand would be right underneath our eyeball. So if our eyeball fell out, it would hit the back of our hand. And I'm a little older, so don't make too much fun of me in your comments when you're sending things in, but I'll do the best I can. But I'm going to get here, and my hand will be where my eye could come out. But the one thing I do is I shove my backside up in the air a little bit. The reason for that is if you're watching a sprinter in track, when they're coming out of the blocks, their butt is higher than their head, so they're rolling their hips as they're coming out, and they're getting good explosion for when you're making contact with your defender. We don't want to be just mushing up against him. We're trying to come out and be coming off the line of scrimmage, and one way to do that is get our butt a little higher, so we're rolling our hips as we come out of our stance. So again, we're going to come up in the good width that we just did before. Hands here, down, and then push it up, and now we're ready to go. And when we come out, we're coming out to get the defender. We're not sitting around just catching them or just trying to wall them off. We want to get movement on that man. Okay, the next thing I'll do is I'll set up the offensive line for the way that we talked about it with strong and quick, and give you some examples of what that would look like. Okay, here's where we're going to try to demonstrate what I talked about again in the previous video. Because I believe in wide splits. We're trying to create natural voids in the defense to give our running backs plenty of room to go, and also make their people operate in space more. We don't want to play in a phone booth. We want to spread them out and then attack them. So you'll see what we've got. In this case, I have a strong right formation, which, if you remember the terminology, would be any formation that begins with an even number, such as a 20-something, a 40-something, a 60, or an 80 type of offense. That will put the strong guard on the right side of the center, and we're spaced fingertip to elbow from the center. Then our strong tackle is fingertip to wrist from the guard. And then our tight end is fingertip to fingertip from the tackle. We try to get progressively wider splits as we go out to make the defenders have to spread out with us, and therefore give us the natural voids to work with. If you remember in our terminology, this would be a 2 formation. Something that begins with a 2, where the tight end is in his normal alignment in line with the tackle. If we went with a 40-something offense, then what the tight end does, and we play with this during the game, is he'll go even further out. And what he's trying to do is make the defensive end that would normally be lined up on him split the difference between him and the tackle. That gives us a wider tackle hole, or it lets him come down on the defensive end if we're trying to go outside. If he doesn't do that, where the defensive end stays on an outside shade on the tackle, and they bring a linebacker down on the tight end, now again, we've got good running holes to get into. We've spread this area out pretty good, so when we want to come there, we've got plenty of area to work within. I'll put him back to his normal 20-something alignment. And again, remember, we're trying to get big splits here. This is a strong right formation. Now, if the strong side is on the right, obviously the quick side, meaning the quick guard and quick tackle, are on the left, away from the strength call. The spacing's the same. I watch some teams where you can see that a team will have wide splits to one side and very narrow to the other. Well, as a defender, you say, guess where they're likely going to go? They're afraid of penetration on the backside, so they're bringing their splits down to try and compensate for that. I don't worry about that, because my philosophy with the linemen is we know the snap count, we know where we're going. We should never get beat off the ball. The defender has to wait for the ball to be snapped. We know where we're going. So if we're doing things properly and we're stepping correctly and we're carrying out our assignments properly, we're not going to have penetration. So I want to keep the backside defenders far away from where we're going so that they can't get involved in the play. It obviously also gives us the ability to run to this side. If they start flipping personnel or overplaying the strong side, we can come back here and have all our natural voids in the defense, which is what we want. What I'll do now is I'll set up a strong left formation so you can see the reverse of this. Okay. Okay, we're back, and what I've done is I've flipped my offensive line to show you what it looks like in a strong left formation. Remember, our strong guard, strong tackle, and tight end will go to the formation call. Our quick guard and quick tackle will go backside. So now we have what would be a 3, 5, 7, or 9 formation, being odd number. Odd number is to the left. So that tells our strong guard that he's going to get fingertip to elbow from the center, but on the left of the center. strong tackle will be fingertip to wrist from the guard. Tight end is fingertip to fingertip from the tackle. What we've done is if we have a defense that plays right and left, now we can create mismatches with our best players on potentially their worst players. We can create whatever matchups we want to do this way by flipping our line. If they are normally a right and left defense and decide to flip with us, what we're doing is making them do something they're not used to doing, and therefore they're likely going to make some mistakes, which is what we want to create. And we still have the spacing, we have the natural voids in the defense that we've created, and now they've got to be able to play both sides of the ball equally well, but this is what we do on every play, so this doesn't matter to us. This is the same reason why we want our feet square and not staggered in our stances, so that we can be on either side of the line of scrimmage and still go right or left equally well. The other thing, remember, on the other side I showed you, again, if this is strong left, then our quick guard and our quick tackle are on the right side of the football now. That's how we flip everybody. So we're where we want to be. If you remember on the other side where I showed you a 40-something offense, where the tight end flexes out a little bit, you do the same thing here. If this were a 70 defense, offense, the tight end now would get wider than normal to try and make the D end either split the difference between him and the tackle, or the defensive end will be in an outside shade on the tackle when they bring a linebacker down here. We now have created a lot of space here to run in. So we're putting them where we want them to be, so we have the best chance of being successful. They may have better players than us, but if we can make them play in more space, it kind of equals that out for us and gives our players an advantage when we snap the football. Okay, so again, I wanted to demonstrate visually what it looks like with the splits that I suggest and the reasons for that. What I'll do now is in this next segment, as I'm going to go into a little bit of quarterback and running back tips that I've learned over the years that may help you. There may be some things you're already doing, but I want to at least give it to you so we have a shot at that. Okay, what I'm going to show you now are some things that I've learned over the years relative to quarterback-center exchange that may help you eliminate fumbles between the center and quarterback, which always seem to happen at the worst time. I don't know why that is, but in a critical situation is when those things are going to happen. So the one thing, most teams are generally their quarterback's hands, when they go into center, his hand should be so that if the center were to pass gas, he'd blow a hole in the back of the quarterback's hand. That's the proper positioning for his hand to be as far as depth in the center's crotch. Most teams, they snap with their wrists together. Well, that creates two problems. Is a lot of times you'll see players, especially early in the season, are getting their fingers jammed, the quarterback, because it's too small a pocket. The other thing that happens is I teach the center to step as he's snapping. So if there's a play going to the right, as he snaps, he's stepping. Well, the quarterback has to be able to anticipate that and move with him so he doesn't lose contact. What that'll do sometimes, if the quarterback's not disciplined, his hands will come apart, and that's where you'll get the ball on the ground. The one thing I've always taught the quarterbacks is you, instead of trying to apply pressure with your upper hand into the center, apply the pressure with your bottom hand so that both hands are moving with the center rather than just one. The other thing that has helped over the years with preventing that is changing the way that you put your hands together. You notice if a quarterback is wrist to wrist, the center, assuming he's right-handed, the laces tend to be to the left side because he's got to turn the football to put the laces across the quarterback's fingers. The other way to do this is you put the non-throwing hand into the quarterback's crotch and the throwing hand on the inside of his thigh, so the thumbs are together rather than the wrists. What this does is it creates a natural rotation for the center if you're playing in areas of the country where you may have bad weather when you reach the playoffs, where it's raining or it's muddy or it's very cold where the ball may get a little slick. You can sometimes have the center lose contact with the football. What this does is, if I'm a right-handed quarterback and I've got my right hand on his inside thigh, now the center reverses the direction of the laces, goes in the direction of that hand, and now he's just got to bring it straight back. So that it's a natural rotation of his hand where he's not trying to turn it in bad conditions. So again, this will put the ball and the laces right on the quarterback's fingers so that he's got it securely when he comes out. It prevents the problem of hitting the quarterback's fingers with the ball. It prevents the part of his hands coming apart when the quarterback steps. And I think it's helped over the years to prevent a lot of those exchanges and the problems that come with them, especially at critical times of the game. The other thing that we do from a running back standpoint is, as you know, if the quarterback is on my right side, when I go to take the football, my right arm is on top, my left arm is underneath. What happens though, you'll get guys that are a little lazy and their elbow hangs down. He'll end up hitting the quarterback's arm during the exchange, potentially putting the ball on the ground. A little tip that an old coach taught me a long time ago is if you take his top hand and turn the thumb down, really emphasize it during practice and during your drills, it forces his elbow up higher. So it gives a bigger pocket for the quarterback to put the ball in. He's not so much worried about hitting the running back's arm with it. So if you get them during your drills to really accentuate turning that thumb down, it'll push his elbow higher and help to avoid some of those exchanges. The other things with running back footwork is, back in the old days when I was younger, you had people like Ricky Henderson that revolutionized base stealing. And many of you, if you coach baseball, may already do this with your base stealers. But it used to be if a runner was going to try and steal a base, he would step with his foot toward the base to begin running. Those guys, what they did to gain that extra little bit of time is they would cross over and had a bigger first step, if you will, than the other way, which got them closer to the bag. Well, I use the same thing with the running backs. I want them, remember, we're attacking the defense. Wherever we're going, we want to get there right now. Our linemen may not be as good as the defenders, so we don't want to have to hold our blocks any longer than we have to. We want to get to our hole and get on the other side of it right now. One way to do that is our backs will cross their feet as they're heading for the hole, whether he's going 2, 4, or 6, or 3, 5, or 7. If he's going to the left, he's going to cross here. It gets us to the hole right now. The other thing it does, when we run our counter plays, obviously when we step here, we're showing the same thing to the defense. Now when we go here, now we're ready to plant and come back the other way on our counter. So we don't look different to the defense when we're running a counter versus our standard running play. So if we were going to counter back to the left side, I'd step here, here, and now we come back and we're ready to go. So both backs would be doing the same thing, and then we're off and running. So again, that's just a little thing with taking the handoffs, getting that elbow a little higher. Obviously, if the quarterback's on our left arm's up, we're going to turn that thumb down, and that's going to bring our wrist up. They go hand in hand, and then we want to cross step when we're coming out, whereas our offensive linemen never cross their feet. We want our backs cross their feet because we want to get to the hole quicker, which helps our offensive linemen get that split-second advantage and gets us on the other side of the line of scrimmage right now. That's it for the visual. I just wanted to try and let you see what the text from last week looks like so you can visualize that. Again, I ask you to digest it, think about it, see if it doesn't help you to improve what you're doing, help you to be more successful, help your players be more aggressive when they're coming off the line of scrimmage. And hopefully that's going to help you be a better football team year in and year out if you apply these techniques to that. Again, if you want to send me comments, good or bad, please send them to footballcoachesforum@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing whatever you have to say, even if you say you look really old doing that or whatever, that's fine, I can handle it. Again, the whole idea is, fortunately, I've acquired a lot of knowledge from some outstanding coaching staffs over the years. Hopefully by sharing this with you, maybe it'll help you if you're not quite achieving what you've been trying to do. And maybe these little things will help to change how you do things and make you a better football team and help your players have a little more success. Okay, that's it for this one. I appreciate it again, and I hope all of this helps you. Thank you.